Our second story out front, Joe Biden. Misspeaking or too honest? You know, in the case of Joe Biden, it is probably both, but let me give you the case. This is the man who is leading the president's gun task force, and here's what he said on Capitol Hill last night.
What we're going to do is going to fundamentally alter or eliminate the possibility of another mass shooting or guarantee that we will bring gun deaths down to 1,000 a year from what it is now.
Okay. Even if you agree with what Joe Biden just said, you might find it strange that he'd say his gun control legislation won't stop mass shootings, because he surrounded himself with children who wrote the White House letters about gun violence when he said this 2 weeks ago.
We have a moral obligation to do everything in our power to diminish the prospect that something like this could happen again.
So which is it? Gun control will stop mass shootings or not, Joe Biden?
Hello everyone, welcome back to GGN. This is part 2 for this news report today. It's Thursday, February 7th, 2013, and I'm Darko. My website is ggnonline.com, and on YouTube, my channels are ddarko2012 and ddarko2013. So, alright, this first article I have is Majority Wants Stricter Gun Laws, Strong Support for Background Checks. This is from the 7th. Voters want stricter gun control laws, but not by an overwhelmingly majority, 52 to 43. A new Polling Institute survey shows of people that want tougher laws. 56 to 39% support for a ban on sale of assault weapons, but voters in gun households are opposed, 52 to 44%. It says 56 to 40% support for a ban on the sale of high-capacity magazines holding more than 10 rounds. So see, this is you know, just a definition of what an assault weapon is, and then you have the NRA, again, the authority on gun owners, which they aren't. 46% say the National Rifle Association, that represents major gun manufacturers, better reflects their view on guns, with 43% saying that President Barack Obama, the CEO of the company, the United States of America, is closer to their view. 92% support for tough background checks. Then Bruce Willis, don't infringe on Second Amendment. He says he's against new gun control laws that could infringe on Second Amendment rights. The Die-Hard star also dismisses any link between Hollywood shootouts and real-life gun violence. I think that you can't start to pick apart anything out of the Bill of Rights without thinking that it's all going to become undone, he told the AP. He also said if you take one out or change one law, then why would they take all of your rights from you? So, you know, the one thing I'll say about him is at least he believes that there's no link between Hollywood movies and violence and real gun violence, whereas you'll have people that are in that stuff and then they go and call for gun bans and gun restrictions and gun control. So then you have this: Sandy Hook father absolutely owns guns violence hearing at Connecticut State Capitol. This is from the 6th. A father of a Sandy Hook elementary school student testified on January 28th in the working group public hearing at Connecticut State Capitol on gun violence prevention. Tim Brown of Freedom Outpost reported Bill Stevens made a statement of defiance against proposed asinine legislation that drew applause from some in attendance, as he reminded legislators that both the national and Connecticut state constitutions affirm the right to bear arms, saying there's no registration, there's no permitting, there's no background checks. He advised the panel, reminding them that rights are endowed by our Creator, not you politicians. So, in order to limit the rights of individuals, there is something called due process, and legislation is not due process. Well, tell that to people who get caught up in renditions and abductions and kidnapped and tortured and stuff like that, or drone bombed. Law enforcement officials now admit possibility of multiple shooters. Says new information has now been brought forth by Connecticut State Attorney, suggesting that records pertaining to the Sandy Hook elementary school shooting have been sealed to possibly hide the identity of witnesses from multiple shooter suspects, and that they should not be unsealed anytime soon. Officials fear the safety of witnesses. Now they're getting somewhere after nearly 2 months of this information is startling. So this is an article from Digital Journal that reports Vance nor the Connecticut Attorney General's office have ever ruled out the possible presence of other suspects. And there's actually a video for this, a terror that stalks America's schools. Bodies litter California campus in mock massacre as staff and students prepare for another Sandy Hook. The drill was funded by a federal grant allowing the department to work with the schools to educate each other on the reaction to a school shooting. Actors played two troubled students attacking students, and the scenario was filmed and will be distributed to schools nationwide. So the police were staging mock massacres to teach students how to cope if a lone gunman targets their campus, covering students in fake blood and pretending to kill the shooters on sight. And look at the video, it actually seemed kind of realistic in the beginning. So, here come more of the good guys. So they can do that on schools and stuff like that, especially the unannounced exercises or drills without consent of parents. The 7-year-old here was playing with an imaginary game at school, gets suspended for real. So I believe he used the imaginary grenade. Second grader's been suspended from school in Loveland for make-believe game he was playing. He said he was trying to save the world, but administrator says he broke the key rule during his pretend play. So it says here he threw an imaginary grenade into the box, I guess, on the playground with pretend evil forces inside. The boy didn't throw anything real or make any threats against anyone. He explains he was pretending to be the hero. The school lists absolutes designed to keep a safe environment. This list includes absolutely no fighting, no real or imaginary. So that drill could be breaking the rules, right? No weapons, real or imaginary. Again, breaking the rules. Then you have unusual no trespassing sign raising eyebrows in Bellingham. So there's some kind of construction site or private property, and the guy put up a sign, no trespassing, construction zone, attention, semi-literate thieves, Glock, F&N, car, Ruger, alternate on site, days, was it 4 days a week? You decide which 4 days. P.S. The neighbors have my cell number. Some parents and residents in the area say having a sign that hints at gun violence so close to young children at a school sends the wrong message. Said one resident says she noticed the sign up the same week as the Sandy Hook shooting. We're already crying because of all the children that have lost their lives and teachers, and then we noticed the sign. Just infuriated me in that somebody would be threatening to shoot people across from our middle school. I think it's terrible. I think there's too many guns in this country and it's too violent. Who's originally from the UK. Despite all the rabble, police say the sign is completely legal. They also say that they were called to the property back in December after $400 worth of scrap metal and materials were stolen from the site. Then senators question creators of curriculum system. So you could just put a school has children draw communist flags, right? The hammer and sickle, but they just put that up there. So you got to go through and read it. But it says here, members of Senate Education Committee on Thursday grilled the creators of curriculum system used across Texas that critics say promotes anti-American values and stifles classroom flexibility. So one representative called it a mess. One witness compared the system to mind control, and an algebra teacher wept as he described quitting because he felt he was aiding and abetting a crime by using this C-scope in his classroom. It's an electronic curriculum management system that offers web-based lesson plans and exams designed to help teachers adhere to state education requirements. A string of witnesses before the Education Committee criticized the program for promoting liberal values they said are anti-Christian at best and openly socialist at worst. Senators asked LeBay about complaints that some lesson plans promoted pro-Islam ideals or described participants of the Boston Tea Party as terrorists. So it goes on here and it says that LeBay was asked to read part of a 6th grade lesson plan that showed different countries' flags and instructed students to notice that socialist and communist countries use symbolism on their flags. It went on to ask students what symbols they would use if they were to create a flag for a new socialist country. Miami-Dade police officers caught on camera allegedly ignoring emergency calls. It says here 2 officers and a sergeant have been fired by the Miami-Dade Police Department according to Internal Affairs report. It says that 5 officers and 1 sergeant with the Kendall squad were allegedly caught on camera ignoring emergency dispatch calls. They ignored a residential burglary call and chose to meet a woman at the Dadeland Mall parking lot. The video shows the officer hugging and kissing the woman in what the police investigation calls a public display of affection. A little later, they were videotaped drinking coffee with emergency calls that came in an alert and about an unconscious 5-year-old. One officer left while the sergeant continued to drink his coffee. It goes on there and says that he said in a radio transmission that he was en route, but investigators said it took him 25 minutes to respond. Miami police officer Luis Hernandez, held without bond on armed sexual battery and kidnapping charges, says he faces 2 charges after his arrest on Wednesday for allegedly kidnapping and sexually battering a woman while on duty is being held without bond. This is after DNA evidence supported a woman's claims that he attacked her in November 2011. Then there's this article, Somalia moves to prosecute women who accused soldiers of rape. From January 30th, Somali government, in a move that has outraged human rights groups, has charged a woman who said she was gang raped by soldiers with making a false accusation, having insulted and lowered the dignity of a national institution. Police shoot 2 in Torrance, this is like, I guess in California, and search for an ex-LAPD cop. LA and Torrance police were involved in 2 shootings early Thursday when police came across vehicles similar to the one sought by authorities in a massive manhunt for an ex-LAPD officer suspected of shooting 3 other officers. So I guess these were 2 bystanders were struck by gunfire and transported to an area hospital with unknown injuries. 5 Chicago cops cut back on 9/11 responses. It says they're weeding out less serious ones to focus on gun violence. So it goes on here and it says that city police in Chicago are now responding to fewer 9/11 calls in person to focus on gun violence. Dispatchers will reroute calls deemed less serious, i.e. car thefts, for example, to desk officers who will deal with them entirely by phone. The city hopes to handle about 151,000 police reports, about 30% of the total. So this comes after this article right here. Mayor moves to 200 Chicago cops from desks to the streets. Move follows recommendation made last week. 200 Chicago police officers will migrate from administrative tasks, or i.e. desks, to the streets. Then, let's not forget this, from January 11th of this year, Chicago Police Chief will shoot licensed civilians with guns. He said that citizens licensed to carry could be, and indeed predicted, they would be shot by Chicago police officers, saying that I don't care if they're licensed, legal firearms, people who are not highly trained, putting guns into their hands is a recipe for disaster. So I'll train officers that there is a concealed carry law, but when somebody turns with a firearm in their hand, the officer does not have an obligation to wait to get shot to return fire, and we're going to have tragedies as a result. The U.S. Central Bank confirms intrusion after hacktivist group Anonymous was claimed to have stolen 4,000 bankers' details, so the Federal Reserve was hacked. Then Italian activist self-immolates to protest illegal loans. The head of the anti-corruption organization in Italy has set himself on fire in a show of protest against illegal loans. He had written a letter to the company earlier explaining why he was setting himself on fire, saying, I am doing it for the victims of usury that no one helps. Then Timothy Geithner says here, MSNBC's Morning Joe says, talking about Geithner, I love the CFR. So it goes on there, says a perfect example of corporate media's CFR psyop occurred this morning during a segment of Morning Joe when a guest from Politico revealed a few hours before the CFR itself announced it that Geithner was joining the group. So after being told the news, the host, including the daughter of globalist godfather Zbigniew Brzezinski, can be heard jumping with joy and then immediately attempting to downplay the CFR by making fun of those who have spoken out against the organization's stated goals, which include the loss of U.S. sovereignty in favor of a one-world order. So it says here, after making the jokes about the CFR president's eating habits, as if they don't have anything important, the host went on to not only shill for the group, but to reveal their absolute love for the globalist organization. Quote, people always tell me, oh, the CFR, one world government, international conspiracy. It's like I've been over there, man. They can't even get my sandwich order right. There is no international plot, end quote. And then, of course, these 3 quotes. It's a lovely place. I love the CFR. I do too, so. And Russell Simmons, the Illuminati does not exist. I'm rich, I would know. So following up on a scandalous Illuminati hand symbol by Beyonce during the Super Bowl, says TMZ catches up with entertainment and fashion mogul Russell Simmons. It says here, mega rich, ultra successful record producer Russell Simmons, inside here says, there's absolutely positively no such thing as Illuminati, which is exactly what someone in the Illuminati would say. Interesting too, because I guess someone was telling me about, they heard Howard Stern get a call in about someone saying that he worked for the Illuminati and stuff like that, and he said that he doesn't, and he didn't. But the caller kept railing on him. And I saw a video back in 2010 about him saying that it's basically going to be a new world order, and he was talking like a Zionist, like a neocon. But anyways, former pilot and 9/11 conspiracy theorist shoots and kills 2 children, then himself. The career airline pilot who says he served for the CIA and DEA during the Iran-Contra affair, shot and killed his 2 teenage children and the family, the dog, then killed himself. The Virginia man who shot at the conservative values offices was charged under the anti-terror law. And Canada considers revoking citizenship over ties to terrorism. So, thank you.